JPTA, call the office. There's a lot of different ways, and we're here to help you, just so that you know that. We want everyone to succeed. We want PTA to be the best it could be. And we do this all for the 1.4 million kids in New Jersey, even if they're not a member of your PTA. We're still advocating for all the people, all the families and kids in New Jersey. So thank you. And next, I believe is okay, I think it is oh, National PTA Grants membership. Okay. Thank you, Rob. Sorry about that.
Thank you, Kathy. So I'm going to go over briefly membership in your PTA. This definitely been a topic this year that has been had many questions with some schools not starting off in person at all, some schools still not in person. But as we move into the end of this school year and move into the next school year that we hope will be a little bit more closer to what we remember as normal, we wanted to go over membership to make sure that you have the tools and you have the mindset ready to start planning for. Hopefully, that will be a year to recover from a lot of the losses that some PTAs have, or to take the great work that we did this year and build upon it to make our PTAs even stronger in the future. So I like to talk about membership regardless of in the time of COVID or during what we used to know as normal times. Three things that truly are the key to PTA membership. So the three things I want to talk about today, you want to make it easy to join the PTA. You want to make it hard. You don't want to, put it in an email once and never remind people about how to join the PTA, especially obviously during COVID times and as we move more and more into times of increased technology use. We want to make sure that each of our PTA members or prospective members have the tools necessary to make sure that it's easy to join the PTA. We want to make the case for PTA. We want to make sure that we're talking about the great things that the PTA do and why joining the PTA is such an important thing, regardless if we'll have those members will have the opportunity to serve on the board or do events. That just being a member of the PTA is so very important. And then finally, you want to make an effective ask. When you're asking people to join the PTA, you want to make sure that that ask is catered to who they are, what they may have, students they may have, to make sure that the ask is something that they're drawn into, so that they end up joining the PTA. So the first one, the goal is to make it easy. Member Hub has allowed each local PTA in New Jersey to set up a free store that can include memberships, spirit wear, tickets to events, and so much more. If you don't have the Member Hub store set up yet, it only takes a few minutes. All you need is your PTA's EIN number and your bank account information handy. You put in that information with the school's address and the contact information, and your store is set up. And then what you do is, once your store is set up, you set up how often you want deposits. So then every time someone joins, every time someone buys spiritware, it's going to send you a notification, and the notification is going to be in there exactly who paid for membership, who bought spiritware, and then every so often you can choose if it's daily, weekly, or monthly. You look at a big deposit of all that money with a report of exactly where the money came from that you deposited. Also, with the memberships, as people join online with their memberships, you don't have to put them in. They're automatically in the system, and they automatically add to your total of how much money you know to use PTA. Then subscribe to GiveBacks. GiveBacks is a new program that Member Hub has created. It's here to get special offers from businesses in your e-store, and you can reward families with savings while you earn up to 20% back on every sale. This is really expanded since it began earlier this school year. They've added so many things. Now there's also gift cards on there, so you get gift cards to so many different places where it's like you pay $95 for a $100 gift card, so save $5, it gets more. There's bigger savings, but then even from the gift card, PTA gets or could get up to 20% back on every sale, which is so amazing. So it's free money just for putting things on there that most likely families are going to purchase anyway. And then to make it easy, you want to tell everyone in the school community, you can join online now. We've had some schools this year that did 100% membership online, and they've gotten as many members as they've done in the past, and even more because it's been so easy to do this. Since we did this, we had a new PTA start in Monmouth County a few months ago at this point. And we posted on Facebook, congratulations to the PTA, as our new PTA in New Jersey. And then people started putting in a comment box, people that have no relation to the school or to the community at all. Oh, I would love to join that PTA. What's the link? I posted the link, and they got, I think, 10 or 12 new members that have no affiliation with that school. They just wanted to support the PTA. So if you're posting that link online, you know, your grandma, your aunt that may live in California, your old neighbor, an old PTA friend of yours that may have moved away, maybe they still want to join the PTA, and you know they won't be able to come to meetings, they won't be able to volunteer. They want to support everything that you're doing. So just by putting that link, click 1, 2, 3, and they're a paid member of the PTA. You want to make the case for PTA. This was so important during this year as we were managing virtual learning and COVID, but it's going to be very important too as we move into the next school year when, you know, some families, they have been away from the school atmosphere for so long. You know, since March of last year, some people still haven't gone to school. Even if these schools have opened in person, some families have chosen to keep their students home for fully virtual learning. So you have to make the case of, as we move into times that we're able to start doing events again and start seeing people again and start hopefully hugging and shaking hands again, why is it important to go back to that thing that we used to have that did all these great things? Are we still going to be able to do that in the future? So make sure that as you're preparing for the new school year and over the summer, you're making the plans of, you know, we may probably still have to adjust some of the things that we have done in the past, but it's a great time to, you know, update some of the things, get your families excited for what's to come. So use social media, post all over social media, make sure, you know, your link is on there, tell them when meetings are and all things like that. You want to brand everything. You want to use your PTA logo. And at my last slide, I'm going to talk about the new National PTA membership campaign, which has a lot of new resources and tools to make logos and things.
Is that better? Can you hear me?
Yes,
better?
much better.
Perfect. Sorry.
Yeah.
My extra mic wasn't on. Sorry, it was going through my laptop. Okay, so you want to brand everything. You want to use your PTA logo because people know that logo. That logo has been around at this point, you know, not since the beginning of PTA, but for many, many years. So people, when they see those letters, they know what it's all about. And even if you've customized your logo, a lot of schools, PTAs have customized their logo to have maybe their school mascot on it or extra words or like the slogan of whatever your school is. People know that. And, you know, when they see that logo on things, they'll know it's a PTA event. And if you have a strong PTA that's doing great events for the school, people are going to want to join that or be part of it because they know PTA does great things. Value provided, impact on families. So you want to continue to show them what you've done. You want to talk about what's been done in the past. Obviously, this past year, you know, PTAs have had to do completely different things than they've ever had to do before. We could still talk about the past. Talk about, you know, things in the school that you've created or donated, things in the school that you've supported, the work you've done, maybe through advocacy or other things, to make sure that people know that there's value in them joining, that their partnership with you in the PTA is important to them too. And then you can go low tech too. You can start picking up the phone and calling parents, talking to them, tell them about the events that you're having, invite them to a PTA meeting. And then, like I said, use the membership campaign toolkit, which I'll talk about in a little bit. Each of these graphics on the side, these are part of the new membership campaign to just spruce up PTA a little bit and to talk about making the case for PTA and why it's so important. And then ask. No one is ever, some people, you're going to get lucky. You're going to have some people that have joined before, people that, join every year, people that are your officers, obviously, are hopefully going to join. But sometimes new people aren't going to just join. You'll have that anxious kindergarten parent that wants to, have always dreamt about being on the PTA, being on the PTA board, volunteering for the PTA. But then you're going to have a lot of those parents that, may think, I'm not a PTA person. I'm not one of those people that can volunteer or do things. I'm not even going to join. But it's without asking them and showing them why it's so important that they join, you may never get them as a PTA member. So it's magical sometimes that people join people. If you ask, and you ask in a way that is engaging and important to them, they're going to join. They're going to want to be part of something that they see is valuable, not only for their students' education, but of course, people want to do things that's valuable to themselves. PTA gives voice on important issues, like Lynette talked about through community, advocacy efforts that we do, especially this year. We've had so many PTAs that are instrumental because they are the PTA in the school and so important. Those are the parents that the schools, districts, the school administration went to make sure their voice was on the reopening committees. Every school district had to have a reopening committee. Every school, individual school had to have a reopening committee. And for so many people, PTA members were part of that team. A lot of times they were just asked because the administration knew that the PTA is so important in their school, we should include the leaders of the PTA as our parent voice. But then we had school districts or schools that, I know this from the town I live in, seeing their information. It is not a PTA. It is one of those unaffiliated parent groups. And I was looking at their reopening plan when they sent it out. And, I knew from working at New Jersey PTA and going to meetings with our stakeholders that parents had to be on the reopening committees of both the districts and the schools. And I saw when they put the members on the committee, it said this person's name, comma, parent. And I'm like, wait, but she's the business administrator. So they went around the system because their parent group doesn't know that they need to not only do great things for the school, do events, but advocate for themselves and for their students. And because of that, parents had no say on this committee other than the parents that are working at the school already that may just go along with what their superintendent or what people may put in place. And then PTA builds strong, inclusive, and welcoming communities, okay? Think about it. Think about the time when we're gonna be able to, post-pandemic, people are going to want to start seeing people again. It's been so long since we've been able to see, people like we used to be able to see people, just go to the store, stopping at the store and having a quick conversation from someone, with PTA, or going to PTA meetings in person, going to family fun night, getting to the school right after it closes to start setting up for the fundraiser that starts at 6:00. Like, people are going to be excited to do those things again. Obviously, they were exciting before, but you want to start being able to bring those things in, because that's how our community forms in PTA, by doing things like that. So you'll meet so many people, maybe we won't be hugging for a while, but you're going to be able to go things again and hearing people's voices. Some parents that, especially in schools, or if they didn't feel comfortable sending their students to school this school year, they've been in the house with their students every single day since March of last year, doing this virtual learning. And for a lot of you, even if your students are in school, a lot of districts are not back 5 days yet. So, there's that one day where you're still virtual learning. Like, you want to start to think about how are you going to build that community again to bring people out of their houses and to your PTA events. And then you want to, after you're asking, or while you're asking, you want to make sure, it's an effective ask. You want to make sure that the ask is geared directly towards that individual so they want to join. So you want to tell your PTA story. Tell them why you joined the PTA, as well as the what. What and why did you join PTA? If it was for your child, why was it important that you felt you needed to be part of the PTA? It will bring people in, and it will show them that, if they join, maybe they'll be able to find their PTA story, why they joined it, and why they're going to continue through their child's education. And the great thing about PTA is we have so many opportunities post being on the local board that you can continue to support and advocate for all students of New Jersey, as Kathy was saying. This is how we PTA. That is one of the catchphrases in our new membership campaign. So join us and show your support. Show your school community how you at your individual PTAs PTA. Make PTA a verb, no longer a noun. Don't make it people, place, and thing. PTA is not just the people, it's the verb. It's actually doing what you're doing. We PTA by, having our monthly meetings, and at our meetings, we make sure we do this, this, and this. We PTA by having this blowout auction in May every year that we make so much money, but we have so much fun doing it. So show the people, the prospective members, how you PTA at your school to make them want to join. Be strategic and deliberative in your messaging. So obviously talking to a kindergarten parent of a first-time student, or talking to a fifth grade parent that's had 3 kids through the school, your ask is going to be a little different. That fifth grade parent who's had 3 kids through the school and probably a past officer, they're probably just going to send in their money or pay online. The kindergarten parent may be a little apprehensive. Oh, I don't know about this PTA thing. I don't really have a lot of time. Show them why their support is so important. Implement a communications plan on how you're going to be able to reach as many prospective members as possible. And then you want to motivate, incentivize, and thank your members, especially in this virtual time. Thank your parents for coming on. Some of them, if it's virtual Wednesday and they were in the house all day, and then you had your PTA meeting Wednesday night on Zoom, thank them so much for, after all day being on Zoom with your child, that they're coming to show their support of the PTA and how to make things better for the whole school community. And then you always want to set a goal, because you think about in anything that you're doing, if you're on a diet, or you want to save money, you're setting a goal for yourself. I'm only going to spend this much money in the day. I'm only going to eat these many calories today. And sometimes we stick with it and sometimes we don't. But by setting that goal and then involving your members, getting them excited about the goal, is going to make it so much more important. So when you do hit that goal, think of how great it's going to be, because you can celebrate it with all of your members. You can have the largest PTA in New Jersey, and unless you're setting that goal, you aren't showing the excitement. Like, oh, we hit this many members, and everyone's like, okay, don't we hit that many members every year? They don't know. They're not going to be able to join in the excitement. But you set a goal. You had 100 members this year because things were a little down because of COVID. And next year, you want to set a goal for 150 members. You want to make sure you bring back 50 people back into the PTA, because you see how important it is, plus new parents. And you hit that 150 mark, especially after the year we've had. It's going to be so exciting to celebrate it with the people that understand what the PTA is doing. So that is the 3 important things I wanted to talk about with membership today. There's so many more resources online that you can visit and learn more. This is the National PTA Membership Campaign information, pta.org/membership campaign. The most amazing thing about all of this is most of it is all customizable. You can take any of these graphics and put your school's name, your PTA name on it to make it look even more professional. That graphic on the right there with the 10 blocks, that is fully customizable as well. You can put your PTA name and information in the middle, when you meet, or your Zoom link. And then each of those picture boxes can be changed. Some PTAs use it to put their board members in, to introduce their board members at the beginning of the year. Or you can just put different pictures from different PTA and school events to show your community what you're doing. There are sample Facebook posts. lots and lots of videos. We even have a commercial that's run on different cable news channels so far, so you can show everyone our new national PTA commercial. PowerPoint templates, so many resources now for PTSAs and SEPTAs that have not had many resources since we started creating them. Sample email signatures, Zoom backgrounds, like I can't see myself right now, but like the Zoom background I'm using, PTA for your child, there's no wrong way to PTA. And then there's so much more. So take a look on there, and it all downloads in one easy to use. I'm sorry, I stopped sharing my screen by accident. One easy to use link, and you'll get all the resources right in your box. And then finally, for COVID, for this year, National PTA has set up resources for families, PTA leaders, and educators on the National PTA site. And the full link is on the bottom, but if you just go to pta.org and Google COVID, and I think as soon as you go to pta.org, it's right at the top, COVID-19 resources. But the PTA leaders page on this is especially helpful. They've created mini trainings. Each of them are only 15 minutes. You can knock them out real quick. How to PTA virtually, which at this point, a lot of us have learned, but there's always a couple extra things we could learn. How to run your PTA for elementary schools, specifically geared for K through 6, and then one specifically geared for 7 through 12, which we don't have a lot of resources and support sometimes when we get to the middle schools and high schools. So it's great that they've created videos on that. There's videos on how to run a virtual meeting, and of course, on the new National PTA membership campaign, how to implement it and how to use it in your PTA. Okay, so as we said, if you ever have questions, you can contact me at the office, and I will be more than happy to put you in touch with someone that can help you or give you the information. And I'd like to introduce our next presenter, our State Treasurer, Lori Palmer, to go over finances in your PTA.
Thank you, Rob. As Rob said, I'm Lori Palmer. I'm the 2019-2021 New Jersey PTA Treasurer. So today we're going to talk a little bit about what you need to do as a PTA Treasurer. The Treasurer is the authorized custodian of the funds of the association, and as such, they receive and disperse all monies in accordance with the budget as approved by the association's general membership. Next slide. We're going to start by diving into the business side of the PTA and how our mission relates. All local PTAs in the state of New Jersey, through your affiliation with the New Jersey State PTA, are a 501c3 organization under IRS codes. But what does it really mean to be a 501c3? Due to our mission, the IRS has granted the PTA to be a tax-exempt, not-for-profit company. This means that for any items or services that you purchase, you do not have to pay tax. Next slide. This slide tells you some of the IRS rules for 501c3 organizations. The first rule, or one of the rules, you must file annually a Form 990. That can be either a 990N, a 990EZ, or a full 990. This is like your personal 1040, and just like your 1040, it is IRS law that you file it annually. The IRS says that no one individual can benefit from PTA funds. For example, if your PTA raises $10,000 and instead of spending the money equally amongst all the grades in the school, whereby all the students would benefit, instead the PTA gives out one $10,000 scholarship to just one student. That's not something that's allowed. They want it spread out amongst everybody. You can do scholarships, but that's another situation. 501c3 organizations are not allowed to support or campaign for a candidate for public office, nor are they allowed to lobby. Anytime a PTA dissolves, its remaining assets must be distributed to another 501c3 organization. And a PTA should never, ever allow any other organization to use their 501c3 status. And at the local level, that usually means your gaming license. So you should never loan or rent that to another organization. You should also never let anybody else funnel any money through your PTA's checking account. The only money going in and out of that account are PTA funds. And of course, we need to adhere to the PTA mission statement. Next slide. Excuse me. The treasurer has a lot of responsibilities and duties, and this is simply an overview of those duties. The treasurer needs to maintain accurate books. The treasurer is a likely candidate to be involved with the budget and the preparation of the budget, and throughout the year to ensure that all spending is done according to the budget. The treasurer needs to pay bills on time, and that includes monthly dues to New Jersey PTA. The treasurer must present a treasurer's report at every PTA meeting, both the board of directors and general meetings. It's a good recommendation to bring your books with you to any of those meetings in case anybody has any questions you need to answer, or if anybody asks to see your books. Any paying member of a PTA is allowed to view your books. They are property, as Kathy said, of the PTA, not of yourself, so they always need to be available for someone to see as long as they are a paid member. You should provide your PTA committee people with the PTA's ST5 certificate. They should use that certificate when purchasing taxable items for PTA events. The ST5 is the New Jersey sales tax exempt form, which proves that you do not have to pay sales tax in the state of New Jersey. The IRS 990, the New Jersey CRI form, and the New Jersey annual reporting filing are all things that the treasurer has to do, and we will discuss those on the next slide. And the treasurer also prepares financial records to give to the Financial Review Committee. Next slide. Kathy also touched on this, that it is everyone's responsibility to know what is happening in your PTA funds. Even though the treasurer is in charge of the actual record keeping of the PTA's finances and is the custodian of the funds, everyone is responsible to know what is happening in the PTA with their funds. They should all make sure that they're checking that treasurer's report when you present it. If they have questions, ask to see the books if they don't understand something. Every member is fiscally responsible for the funds of the PTA. Next slide. This is a sample ST5 form. As we said, this should be used anytime you're purchasing a taxable item for your PTA so that you don't get charged sales tax. So what if you can't find your ST5 form that you would have gotten many, many years ago? You can get a new one from the New Jersey Department of the Treasury, and this is information on how to obtain that. I believe they said, you will be getting copies of these slides. Also, this information is available on our resource hub. Next slide. As a treasurer, you need to adhere to the standards of affiliation that New Jersey PTA has put forward for you. Our resource hub has a full training video and best practices tip sheet on the standards of affiliation checklist. And we're just going to cover the items that are related to the finances. And that's why, as you see, you're not going to go in order. We will cover 1, 2, 3, and 6. First, I'm sorry, 1, 2, 3, 6, 7, and 8. First, we're going to cover 6. Why would we start at the beginning? If you didn't change, yes, the budget. The board determines, after the board determines the budget, the treasurer has to present it to the PTA during the general meeting for adoption. And you're supposed to present it at your first general membership meeting of the year, which for a lot of PTAs is their back to school night. Number 7, as I touched on a little bit, you must pay dues to the New Jersey PTA monthly. If you did not have any new members join, you don't have anything to pay them, but every time you have a member join, every month that you have members, new members, in addition to putting them in Member Hub, you have to give that portion of the dues to New Jersey PTA. Number 8 is your local financial review. At the end of the fiscal year, which is June 30th, the treasurer prepares all the financial records for the Financial Review Committee. There are instructions on the financial review every year telling you what you must provide to the financial review committee. That committee is made up of at least 3 members of your PTA who were not signers on the checking account during the fiscal year that is being audited. So for the fiscal year that's being audited, anybody who was the treasurer, the recording secretary, or the president, typically those are your signers, they cannot be on the financial review committee for that year. Next slide, please. We talked about as part of your standards of affiliation. We didn't move to the next slide. As part of your standards of affiliation, you present the budget, but the question is, how do you get that budget? Who prepares it? So the president should ask for volunteers, but the logical choices for people to be on the budget committee would be a past president, a past treasurer, the current president, the current treasurer, maybe fundraising chairman, people who have experience in the PTA and have worked through budgets previously. So how is the budget determined? First, you have to project your income and expenses. You have to figure out how much money are you going to need for the activities you have planned. And when you figure out how much money you're going to need, you have to figure out how you're going to get that money. You would base the projection of how much money you need on last year's income and expenses. For example, if your fall fundraiser last year was projected to bring in $12,000 and it only brought in $10,000, then this year you're not going to put $12,000 in your budget unless there was some anomaly last year, such as COVID, that you couldn't make your $12,000. But if $10,000 was what you legitimately could have made last year, let's just assume that that's what you're going to be able to make this year if everything else is equal. So you're going to set your budget at that point for your fall fundraiser at either $10,000 or maybe a little less. It's always a good idea to underestimate your income a little and likewise to overestimate your expenses. That way you're not going to fall short. The budget has to indicate your PTA's cash on hand at the beginning of the fiscal period. Again, remember that your fiscal year begins July 1st and ends June 30th. So whatever money you have on June 30th of 2021 is going to be your cash on hand for your 2021-2022 budget. The budget has to include all projected income from all sources. That's money you bring in that might be above and beyond the money that you have to pay out for your memberships, any of your fundraisers, if you get donations, whatever is bringing money into your PTA, that has to be included in your income. The budget also has to include all projected expenses. Keep in mind that items such as the NJPTA convention, county council dinner meetings, and even national PTA convention are legitimate expenses to put in your PTA budget so that you can send PTA members to these events. Similar training to what's going on now, plus more advanced training, and a lot of other interesting topics occur at these events. So that's one of the reasons why it is always a good idea to send somebody to get some new information, new ideas, or learn a little bit that they don't know. After your budget's completed, as I said, present it to the board of directors, and then you have to present it to the general membership at the first general meeting of the school year. Next slide is a sample budget. This is just one sample budget. If you just go on Google and search PTA budgets, a lot of different budgets will come up. It's amazing what you can find just by Googling PTA budgets, PTA bylaws. People put everything online, so you can see what other people spend on certain items or what items that they put in their budget that you might not have thought of, but it might be something that you might be doing for your PTA. Next slide. In order to carry out the mission statement, PTAs need money, which, as Kathy said, most often they raise that money through fundraising. So as we said, you're going to determine how much money you need for what you plan to do, and then you plan your fundraisers accordingly. once you raise the amount of money you expect to spend in the year, you should stop fundraising. There's no need for large carryover balances, and there's certainly no need for any PTA to have a savings account. PTAs are not going to need a rainy day or emergency fund. Unlike at home where your refrigerator might break down, you have to repair your heat. You have to put a new roof on your house. PTAs don't have those expenses. So you really need the money to go year to year, and you need a little money to carry over to get your PTA started the next year before any of your income comes in. So a lot of time the questions are, what kind of fundraisers should you run? That is going to change based on your individual PTA. You're going to choose whatever fundraisers you think will work well in your school, in your area, in your district. What works in one school or one city is not necessarily going to work in the next city. What works in North Jersey might not work in South Jersey. What they're doing in California might not be what's going to work out here in New Jersey. So figure out what is going to appeal to your individual PTA members and the families in your school. And that's the type of fundraisers you should do. Next slide. Another way that PTAs fundraise is through gaming. As a charitable organization in New Jersey, PTAs are legally allowed to hold bingos, 50-50s, raffles, gift auctions, tricky trays, all those fun games of chance. But in order to hold any kind of game of chance, you must apply for a biennial license from the New Jersey Legalized Games of Chance. And once you have that license, if you are going to hold a particular fundraiser, a game of chance, you must apply for a permit for each gaming event from the municipality in which the event will be held. That being said, a license and permit are only necessary if you are charging money for the event or for the tickets. If somebody is coming to an event and you're giving out free door prize tickets, you don't need a gaming license or a permit for that. Nobody is giving you money for that chance to win something. But if you're having a fashion show and you're charging somebody to come to the fashion show and they could win a prize, then you've charged them in order to do that. You would need, for whatever prizes they're going to win, you would need to have permits and your gaming license. When I say every municipality, if you have one event and let's say you're holding your event, I live in Mercer County, so I'm going to use cities around here. If you're having an event in West Windsor, New Jersey, you're going to need to get a permit from West Windsor. Maybe that's where you're having your bingo because a school out there is hosting it. And then 6 months later, you're going to have a tricky tray, but you're holding that in Hamilton. Then you're going to have to go get another permit from Hamilton for that event. Each municipality has their rules, regulations, and forms that have to be filled out for that. You would need to check into the municipality and figure out what their rules are. The gaming license is for 2 years, and that goes for anything you do, but each individual activity will need a separate permit from the municipality. State law, state law also requires you to have a separate checking account for all gaming activity, which you must use for all income and expenses related to gaming. So if you have a checking account and you have to pay for your gaming license, you can use your checking account to pay for that. It's a gaming expense. If you need to buy tickets, you need to buy merchandise, you take that out of your gaming account. Any income from sales, tickets, if you're selling food or something during this event, that all goes back into that checking account. Eventually, down the road, if you need it somewhere else, you can transfer it, but it needs to go in and out from that event for the expenses from the event and the income. And then once it's in there, it can be moved if necessary. The reason for that is there could come a time when the New Jersey Legalized Games of Chance decides that they want to come in and check up on your gaming activities. They're going to ask to see your books. When they ask for that, they don't want to see your 4 or 5 different checking accounts that you have for all your different events. They just want the one that has to do with the gaming activities. When you have a gaming activity, you have to fill out a form and send it in to New Jersey, how much you spent, how much you brought in. They will have all that information. They want to be able to see your books that back up the information that you have on those forms. Next slide. Organization is the key to proper bookkeeping. You need to keep a current check register. It can be a handwritten register. It can be an Excel spreadsheet, or it can be bookkeeping software like QuickBooks. QuickBooks can be bought through TechSoup.org, and I think it was in the $60 range last time somebody had checked. One good recommendation is that you might want to consider, if you have a little bit of extra money, buying an inexpensive laptop for the PTA treasurer. Buy your QuickBooks, install that on the laptop, and then each time you change treasurers, you simply pass that laptop from one treasurer to the next. That way, all the previous banking information and treasurer information is all on that one laptop, and you don't have all these files and thumb drives. And years ago, it used to be floppy disks. Now it's thumb drives. We don't know what it's going to be in 5 years. But if you have a computer, you can keep transferring that, updating the computer, and keep all the information there. There are a lot of different pieces of paperwork that will help. Again, as we said, organization. You also want to keep a paper trail with your treasurer. You want to be able to follow the trail of money coming in, money going out. So the next slides will show you a few samples of different forms. This is an income voucher. Anytime you're going to collect money, whether it's checks or cash, use an income voucher. Have at least 2 people count the money that's coming to you and sign off on the amount that's being deposited to you, and then you can count it. You'll have everything there, who submitted it, the cash, the checks, what the total deposit was, who counted it, all that information is right there. Once it goes to the bank and gets deposited, if you get a deposit slip from there, you can attach the deposit slip right to there. When they go to look at your books at the end of the year, everything is right on that one page. Next slide. On the flip side, anytime somebody asks for a check from your organization, they should fill out a check request form. They should tell you who to make the check payable to, who's asking for it, what committee the money is coming out of in your budget, and what they use the money for. They must have receipts for everything, even though it says receipt attached, yes or no. No is not really an option. It's just on there because it looks better to have 2 options. But you're not going to give money to somebody if they can't validate what they spent the money on. Then before the check is given out to the person, the treasurer and the president, when they're signing the checks, will both initial the voucher and then sign the check. You can put the check, the number of the check date, and the amount right on that form. Again, when they go to look at it, when they're looking at your books, everything is right there. They can compare that to the bank statement. Next slide. Reconciliation worksheet. For those of us who are from the older generation, these used to be on the back of your bank statements. Of course, that's when you used to get bank statements paper in the mail. It's a good idea to have one of these for your account. Even if you're using QuickBooks, it's always good to be able to reconcile your bank statement and your check register or your QuickBooks. You need to reconcile your check register to the bank statement every single month. This is going to ensure that you've accurately recorded all the income and withdrawal items that have gone in and out of the bank. It's also the same that's in your check register. Also, sometimes your insurance policy will mandate that you have a non-signer on your checking account sign off on the reconciliation. You don't want just the people who are signing the checks to be the only people who are looking at the books and reconciling between that and the bank statement. If something is going wonky in the bank books, those people are the ones who are keeping the books. You want to have somebody else who's has no relation to the money going in and out of the account, able to look at the accounts against the bank statements and make sure everything is above board. Again, as I said, bring your books to all your meetings, your exec meetings or your board of directors, your general meetings. And if you have all your books there, that's an easy time to ask somebody else to reconcile it. If you have the bank statements and all your books there, they're already at the meeting, they might as well take a few minutes and reconcile the books for you. That way, nobody has to go out of their way, come up with another time to reconcile that month's statement. Next slide. So procedures for your checkbook. According to your bylaws, the president and treasurer must sign every check. They are your primary signers. Your insurance policy a lot of times also requires that you have 2 signers on every check. Your bank does not necessarily require that, but New Jersey PTA does. Again, it's a double check so that not one person can just write out a check for whatever they want, sign in one signature and go ahead and pay somebody, cash it themselves, do whatever with that money. There's always a double check, a person double checking it. As it says here, your insurance policy will not pay on a fraud claim if these procedures were not followed. You also do need a 3rd emergency signer on your account in the event that one of the 2 main signers is indisposed. Oftentimes that is your secretary. Some PTAs will use other signers. There are times we found that some people, because of their jobs, are not allowed to be signers on an account for a PTA. So they may have, even if they have the position that would normally make them a signer, if they have another reason that they can't sign, you may have to find another signer. Check signers cannot be related. They cannot be related by marriage or by blood. Again, that's to keep everything above board. You want non-related people, 2 non-related people signing the checks. Never, ever, 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 there should be 18 evers there, sign a blank check. Once you sign a blank check and you hand it to somebody, they can make that payable to anybody for any amount up to every red cent that is in your bank account. And you'll have a hard time getting somebody to pay out on the fact that that is an illegal check if it has your legitimate signature on it. If you put your signature on it, make sure you filled out all the other lines and everything is correct. When receiving cash, one of the important things we said, don't take the responsibility of counting it alone. Have at least one other person count it with you, sign it off. That way, the person who hands you the money can't come back and say, well, I gave you $300. And when you deposited, you said there was only $250 there. Make sure they've counted it, signed it, you've counted it, and agreed with their amount so that you all are in agreement with how much money goes in and out of the bank. Next slide. There are many different treasurer's reports. Again, Google search, you'll find them. There's sample treasurer's reports on the Resource Hub. Your treasurer's report has to be presented at every board of directors meeting and every general membership meeting. They will be different reports potentially for each meeting because the report will run from meeting date to meeting date. So if your board of directors meets every single month, then you will be preparing a treasurer's report every month that goes from the date of the last meeting to the date of this meeting. Your general membership may only meet every 3 months. That means that your treasurer's report will go from the date of the last general membership meeting through 3 months up until the date of the next general membership meeting. It will capture all financial transactions that occur between the dates of the meetings. And again, remember, have all your books there. People may ask questions, or again, you can always conveniently get somebody to sign off on your reconciliation. A lot of people want to know how you present the treasurer's report, and that's really up to the individual PTA. Listed here, you can email it before the meeting. You can project it on a screen at the meeting. You can print it out and hand it out to everybody. You can read it out loud. Whatever works for you, as long as the people have the ability to see the treasurer's report. They don't have to hold it in their hand. If they can see it projected, that's good enough. They don't have to have it before the meeting. It can be presented at the meeting. Give them time to look at it. And if they have any questions, they'll be able to ask the questions by seeing it. The next slide will have a sample of a treasurer's report, as I said, on the Resource Hub, or just Google search for different ones. Next slide, we're going to talk about the financial review. That has to be done by a financial review committee, which is made up of 3 members, or at least 3 members of your PTA. The committee is appointed by the PTA president. The financial review committee members cannot have been signers on the account during the period being audited. The treasurer, while they can't be on the financial review committee, should be available during the review to answer questions that the committee might have as they're going through the books. If your books are accurate and neat and you've been reconciling your checkbook and register to the bank statements every month, then the financial review should be a seamless process. In your financial review, you must account for all of your PTA accounts. So when we ask you to do a financial review and send it into the state or let us know that you did one, if you have 3 different accounts, you need to do a financial review for each individual account. You don't just do one account and not worry about the other 2. If you have 3 accounts, review all of them. The financial review form will change a little bit each year as we tweak it or make some changes. So that is sent out to each PTA every year in enough time for them to do the financial review and get it back to the information that we need back to New Jersey PTA by the deadline, which will be on the form. There's self-explanatory instructions on there telling everything you need to do and everything you need to provide to the audit or financial review committee so that they can review the books. Next slide. IRS, our favorite 3 letters, especially at this time of year for personal people. The IRS requires all nonprofits to annually file a 990 form. Which form of the 990 your PTA must file is dependent on your gross income. You have to remember that your gross income is all the money you bring in. If you were to add up all the deposits on your bank statement, you would have your gross income. So just for example, if you just take one fundraiser, if your fundraiser, when you make all your deposits for your fundraiser, you brought in $10,000. Now you knew that you had to pay $8,000 of that back to the fundraising company for the items. So you're really only keeping $2,000. The $2,000 is your net. The $10,000 is your gross. So it's going to be how much money you took in, even if you didn't get to keep it all. The IRS will automatically revoke your tax exempt status if one of the Form 990s are not filed for 3 consecutive years in a row. We strongly say, don't let this happen. File these forms annually. Don't let it lapse for even 1 year. It's costly and very time consuming to have to go back and put all the information together to catch up. The form that you file, as I said, is dependent on your gross income. As you can see here, if you gross 50,000 to 200,000, you file a 990 EZ with schedules A and O, and Schedule G if you gross more than 15 in gaming income. If you gross 200,000 to 500,000, you file the 990 with all the same schedules. And if you gross $50,000 or less, you file the 990N, which is totally filed online. But the other 2, the 990 EZ and the regular 990, must be filed in paper form. Next slide. You also need to file a New Jersey CRI form as a charity if you gross over $10,000. If you gross under $10,000, you do not have to be registered with the New Jersey Charities Registration, but you can choose to register. You never really know when you're going to quite go over that $10,000. But if there's any year that you know you grossed over $10,000, you will have to file a CRI form. Most of the PTAs, I believe, or a large percentage of them, are registered with the charities. They may never have filed their CRI forms because that's just something that people have forgotten to do over the years. But if you gross more than $10,000, you must file this form every year. And then there's a fee for it. If you gross $25,000 or less, the fee when you file is $30. If you gross between 25,000 and 100,000, your fee is $60. And if you gross $100,000 or more, the fee is $100. If you lapse in these filings, like the IRS, where the IRS will charge you penalties that accumulate by the day, and you'll have to pay your penalty, and there's a penalty, and I think there's a flat payment, and then the penalty that goes up each day. New Jersey, there is a fee that they will charge you for not filing. Plus, you will have to go back and pay whatever the fees were for the previous years you didn't file. Again, very time consuming to have to get all this together, and it's costly. If you file every year and you're making $25,000 to $100,000 in gross income, you're paying $60 a year. If you lapse for 3 years, now you have to come up with not only that $180, but whatever their penalties are, and they can be steep. Next slide. There's a New Jersey annual report that is only required if your PTA is incorporated. If your PTA is incorporated, you have to file the annual report and pay a filing fee. Last we knew, the filing fee was nice even $25.50 if you don't change the registered agent. This report is a total online filing. There's no way to file it in paper and mail it in. You have to go online, file it, and pay, I think, by e-check. You have to know your incorporation ID number and your incorporation date. All of that, hopefully your secretary or treasurer or president has all that paperwork in a nice binder that they've kept since your PTA began. Talked about your registered agent. That's basically the person that they would contact with any questions, or if they send you paperwork to remind you that you're due or you've missed a report or something, they send it to that agent. If you have to change the agent, last time I did it, it was $25 additional to change the agent. So the recommendation is to not necessarily make it your president or your treasurer, because we know that those positions could change every 1 to 2 years, and you don't want to have to spend an extra $25 every year or two just to change that. In the PTAs that I was at, locals, a lot of times they would use a teacher in the school who, has longevity at the school, or the principal. It's a name that the mail can go to. As long as you can trust that they're going to give you that piece of mail and they will agree to it. If you put their name on it, they're going to be at their position usually longer than your officers are going to be part of the PTA. Next slide. Very, very important slide that we thank Stephanie Bowe for, because she put this all together. Contact information. If you have questions on IRS filing, annual report filing, ST5 certificates, all of it is listed here. Mailing addresses and phone numbers, web addresses, whatever we could find, so you can get in touch with anybody if you have any questions. If you need forms or documentation, you've lost articles that you need for something, if it's filed with the state or the local municipality, hopefully there's information there. You'll be able to get whatever information you're missing. Next slide. End of the year. What does the treasurer need to do at the end of the year? You need to make sure all your books are in order for the Financial Review Committee. Make sure that all the invoices that have come in already have been paid. There may be some that are outstanding because you may have activities at the end of the year. The invoices don't get in before the school year ends. That's fine. We all know that some are going to come in after the financial review has been done. You just know what's outstanding. Make sure that all of your NJPTA standards of affiliation that deal with your finances have been completed so that you're staying in compliance with New Jersey PTA. If it's the end of your term, meet with the incoming treasurer, explain the procedures, and hand over any financial records that you don't need to turn over to the Financial Review Committee. Most of your items are going to go to Financial Review Committee. When they're done with them, they will turn them over to the next treasurer. But if you have stuff that they don't need, give that to your treasurer. Also, if it's a new incoming treasurer, recommend that they attend one of our officer training. Tonight you have officer training included with some other training. Conventions, often we do officer training and more in-depth training also. At this year's convention, treasurer will be doing a basic treasurer training similar to what we're doing here tonight, but there will also be a more in-depth treasurer training on how to fill out your CRI forms, how to fill out or prepare a budget, how to fill out 990 forms. That will all be discussed at a more advanced training. Next slide. So after the financial review, all the records for the year, while they're going to go over to the new treasurer, or if you're staying on, they come back to you. Take all those records, gather them together, put them in a large envelope, write the fiscal year on the outside of the envelope, and keep that with all your other records. The IRS requires you to keep your financial records for 7 years. So there's a list there of everything that you should include with these records you're keeping. If you can keep your records somewhere in the school, that would be the best thing. If you can get the school to give you a designated file cabinet, a shelf in a room that they're not using, a closet, a cubby hole, if you can hide them under the floorboard somewhere, in the rafters, wherever they say, here's a little bit of space that you can stick your little bit of items. That way, all of your records are somewhere that is accessible, and it keeps the poor treasurer from having boxes of records follow them from treasurer to treasurer. There's nothing worse than, hi, you're the treasurer, here's 5 boxes of all of our records from the past. Please find room in your house to keep these 5 boxes. When you get that envelope for this year's, the most recent financial records, and you put it in your box, put it in the front of the box, that means you can take out the oldest envelope, because that will now be 8 years old, and you can destroy them and get rid of them. That way you'll only ever have to keep 7 years, and hopefully your storage space and your number of boxes will be at a minimum. Next slide. Just to reiterate some of the things we said, never ever sign a blank check. Kathy said you're not an ATM for the school. That is not a function of the PTA. You're there to enhance the school for the children. Anytime you fundraise, you need to support the mission. If you're considering a fundraiser, look at our mission and see if the principles of that fundraiser or that company go along with our mission. Ensure that all of your proper financial controls are being followed, including your reconciliations. Next slide. What can you use your PTA funds for? Just a couple of things. Insurance. You should have insurance for your PTA. Insurance will bond your officers so that they are not personally responsible if there is theft in the PTA. That's one of the biggest uses of your insurance. It also should provide you with some liability insurance. So when you have events at your school, most schools will ask, if you're going to use their space, they will need you to give them a copy of your insurance policy so that they know you have insurance to cover if somebody is injured at your event. Use your PTA funds for leadership development training such as this, PTA conventions, to do cultural arts programs or bring assemblies into the school to enhance the children. To recognize student achievement with awards, whether it's for your reflections or if the PTA is running the spelling bee for the school, the awards from there would be coming out of your PTA funds. To some degree, enhancement of curriculum. We are not put here to give the curriculum, but if you have something that the school wants to do above and beyond, and your PTA says it adheres to our mission, and we think it's a good idea, and we have the funds that we can help out, we'll do that. And the last one, biggest thing, most questions is equipment. While we're not an ATM and we're not there to buy things for the school, there does come a time that in order for our schools to have certain items, the PTA will purchase certain things. We do give, do it with caution, make it within reason. One of the recommendations too is anything you purchase, you then are giving it to the school. Most schools or school districts, you are able to verbally present it at a school board meeting as a donation to the school district. You can say that, the PTA from such and such a school is donating this. You may be donating it to your school, but once you've donated it and the school board receives it, and anytime I was involved in that happened, the school board actually sent a letter to the school saying that they accepted the donation. Once they accept the donation, it is now theirs. It is theirs to do with what they want. If they want to move it to another school, it is within their rights because it is theirs. If it breaks, they have to fix it. They can't come back to the PTA and say, your TV you bought us broke, you need to have it fixed. No, we bought it, but it's now yours. You need to have it fixed. So keep all that in mind if you are purchasing items for your school. Next slide. Which is not mine. So that allows me to turn this now over to our New Jersey PTA Secretary, Ginger Reinhold.
Thank you. I'm trying to get my video up and it's not going. I'm so sorry. I would rather have my picture up there. Before I get into, start my video. Give me a sec. No, it still won't go. There we go. Before we get started on the minutes, I just want to mention something, and I haven't had a chance to talk to Lori yet. The end of last week, a PTA in Bayonne had given me a call, and they had got a cease and desist letter from an organization that was helping them do a online raffle license. So here's what happened. The Member Hub apparently helped them do an online raffle or recommended how they should do it. And when they probably could be recommending to some of you locals, I really don't know what you're doing out there. So they then recommend this group called Rally Up, and they take in the money for supposedly the tickets for a wheel so that someone can win a prize. Well, Rally Up is a third party and they are not allowed to do this. They got a cease and desist letter from the state of New Jersey. So when I called the state just to check up on this and find out if, what this problem was, because they had ran one before with no problems. Apparently the state found out about it and said they're a third party. They cannot go through Venmo and take money for this PTA or any PTA. If you want to sell a ticket, you have to be the person that takes the money, or even if you want to call it a donation, you have to be the one to take the donation. So the state is looking at Rally Up. So if any of you are using this Rally Up, I just wanted to warn you that they will be, they may be out there checking you as well. Right now, that's not what they're doing. They're more going after Rally Up and asking them to stop doing this. But just in case, I want you to beware. I don't want you to get caught up in something and then have a fine, or even take your license away, or they may just smack your hand, but just beware, okay? Now, on to minutes, motions, and more. Next slide, Rob. Oh, for God's sakes. The duties of a secretary is to attend trainings, which are trainings like this from the state, trainings that are a convention, county councils do trainings, and you can also go on e-learning on the national website. All of them are good. All of them give a little bit of different info. Keep accurate and concise records of the proceedings of your PTA. prepare your minutes to be approved, create and send meeting notices about upcoming meetings, and write letters authorized by the president or a committee chair, should the president give her permission for them to do so. Next slide. Oh, and the sending out notices, or not notices, correspondence, it would be a thank you, or we appreciate everything you've done, things like that. That's what I'm talking about. Bring to every meeting. You bring your local, always have your bylaws with you. Always have minutes from past meetings. A red pen or pencil for corrections. The membership list from Member Hub, always have that, because you're going to have a sign-in sheet at your meeting. So you want to make sure that those people are a member or they cannot vote. And a paper and pencils for ballots. Should you be taking a vote and it needs to be a ballot vote, you may not do, the president may not want to do a voice vote. It could be something that people definitely don't want everyone to know what they're talking about, or there could be a decision for any reason. You want to have a paper and pencil for everyone to vote on those ballots, in which you would count them up, and later on you'll see how that works out. Next slide. What are the minutes? The minutes are a legal document recording of what was done at the meeting, not what was said. They should never reflect the opinion of the secretary on anything said or done at the meeting. So any little personal things you want to put in there, no. You just write what was done at your meeting. Next slide. What goes into the minutes? The name of your PTA, the type of meeting, general membership, board of directors, or a committee, date, time, and place of your meeting, the name and title of your presiding officer. Sometimes it's not the president, so just remember, it could be your vice president. She could be out for some reason, very sick, could have COVID, who knows. You want an attendance list, which is really your sign-in sheet that you can attach to your minutes, and then your previous meeting minutes that are going to be approved. Next slide. Also in your minutes, you want your treasurer's financial reports, the board of directors and officers report. You hope that they send that in early, otherwise you're going to have to write down everything that they say when they give their report. Motions, the name of a person making the motion and the result of the vote. And that would be if you had 20 people that are voting, 20 yes, 0 no, 15 yes, 5 no, that's what you want to put in the result, and your time of adjournment. And then when your minutes are approved, the signature of your secretary and the date of the approval. Next slide. What if there's changes? As you see on this slide here, there's a red circle around Susie. So there was something wrong there, whether we spelled Susie's name wrong or whether Susie was really Sarah. You want to circle it and put the correct information in and put your initials. Next page. Record what is done, not what is said. Proposals are offered in the form of a motion that the group do something. A motion begins with, I move that, and then whatever it is they want to propose. When you hear I move that, it's the secretary's cue to start getting a motion slip and take down the next statement. Next slide. This is an example of a motion slip. So you use these forms to write the exact words as stated by your chairman, which is really your president who's running the meeting, and adopted by the majority. You will attach that written motion to your notes. You can write it down if it's fairly easy, and your presiding officer, which is your president, will reread it before the vote is taken. But should it be say a contentious meeting or, very heated, who's ever making that motion, I would suggest you let them write down exactly what it is they want to propose. It's in their handwriting. They cannot at the next meeting say, I didn't say that. That's not what I meant. That's not what, have them write it down. And then this way, everything is on they're happy, you're happy, and then there's no question about what's going on. Next slide. Here's a motion example. This is a nice, easy one. James Olson says, Madam President, because of our third floor meeting room is not accessible to disabled members, I move that all meetings be held in room 141. So in the secretary's notes, she will have down, it was moved by James Olson that all meetings be held in room 141. The motion was adopted, and if it was defeated, you write that down, and then you attach the original motion to your notes. And as I said before, you also want to write down how many were for it, how many were against. Next slide. Committee reports. They can be written or presented orally. They can be for information only, or they can end with a recommendation, which is a motion on which the body takes action. Committees need not report if they have nothing new to report, or anything to report for that matter. Next slide. You want to record all the counted votes, both for and against, like I said. You want to record names of committee appointments and nominees. Keep that list in a binder. Shh. Sorry about that, guys. Do not record the debate. Do not record the discussion, and do not record personal opinions. Minutes. Also, your minutes are permanent records of your PTA and must be kept forever. It's a lot of minutes. I think this could be it. Next slide. Records to keep. You want to have your legal records. You want to have your original charter, bylaws, standing rules, which we all are recommending highly that you have standing rules, and all your minutes from that year. You want to, there you go, previous minutes. You want to have agendas for the year. You want to have a list of the current year officers, chairman, and the committees. You want to have all current reports that were sent to you. And hopefully you get them all the time. It certainly makes you taking your minutes a whole lot easier. And you want to make sure you have your financial reports. Always have that treasurer's report. Next. And that is it for the minutes. So I'm sure there wasn't any questions. If there ever is, you can always find my name. I'm G. Reinhold at njpta.org, and I can help you with anything else should you be interested. And now we have Stephanie Bowe, and she's going to do the bylaws.
Okay, good evening, everybody. My name is Stephanie Bowe. I'm the New Jersey PTA Bylaws and Procedure Chairman. So by now, most of you know what bylaws are, but they are the documents containing the rules of your association. Every nonprofit is required to have them by New Jersey state law, that is. Not only are they required by PTA, but they are the law that you must have them. New Jersey PTA presently requires that you review and renew your bylaws every 3 years. The delegates this year, though, at the 2021 convention in May, will vote to create generic bylaws or uniform bylaws for all PTAs with renewal no longer required. So that's a pretty exciting event that's going to be happening, and we hope that you can join us for convention in order that you will cast your vote to vote in these generic bylaws or uniform bylaws. Slide. Thank you. Okay. So along with hopefully voting in uniform bylaws, New Jersey PTA is going to require that you create standing rules. Now, standing rules, what's the difference between standing rules and bylaws? Bylaws are rules that are an overall broad set of rules for your PTA. Standing rules, and they would apply generic bylaws or the bylaws apply to all PTAs. Those rules apply to all PTAs. Standing rules would be rules that apply specifically to your PTA. They are unique in that fact that your standing rules are not going to be the same as the standing rules of any other PTA, because you're going to put very detailed things in them that are unique to your PTA, things that would help you actually run your PTA. I like to describe standing rules as an overall procedure book for your PTA, such that if all of your officers were to leave office tomorrow and a new set of officers came in that knew nothing about what your PTA did, they should be able to pick up your standing rules and run your PTA pretty much just like you did. So standing rules do a lot of things. They're an overall procedure book. They help to derail conflict. And what we mean by that is that they are rules that when somebody is asking you a question as to why your PTA is doing what they are doing, you have a black and white document to refer to and say that because this is what our standing rules say. And on that note, your standing rules are a document that have to be approved or adopted by your general membership. They do not need to be sent to New Jersey PTA to be approved, although New Jersey PTA does want you to submit a copy of them to us. And the reason for that being is that because they are unique to your PTA and because uniform bylaws are rules that are going to apply to every PTA, no longer will the dues amount that you charge your members be in the bylaws. Now they're going to be in your standing rules. No longer will the terms of your officers be in your bylaws. They're going to be in your standing rules. What month you have your elections, no longer going to be in your bylaws, going to be in your standing rules. So because these things are voted on by your membership now in bylaws, and they're no longer going to be in there, they're going to be in standing rules. That's why you have to present your standing rules to your general membership for adoption. I hope that wasn't all too confusing. Anyway, one of the other reasons standing rules are very important is that they can improve efficiency. Every year, I've been on PTAs for 25 years, well, local level, about 20 years. And there'd be a point in every year it'd come about, oh, when did we do this last year? When did we do that? And how do we handle this? Instead of sifting through possibly minutes or procedure books, these things should be answered in your standing rules. So, your standing rules can be so detailed. You can be listing in there not only all the duties of your officers, the duties of your chair, of your committees, your chairman, but when you hold what fundraiser, how your fifth grade party situations run, how your eighth grade social situations run, how your post-prom or after prom, who runs that and how that all gets done. They can be super detailed. They can be pages and pages and pages long if you want them to be. This way, they would be a very useful document or a useful tool for your PTA to use. They, like I said before, the derailing conflict, they also, along with that, they improve transparency. If you have a written document with how you run things, nobody can accuse you of, doing things, and also this document's being approved by your general membership. Nobody can accuse you of doing something, just because you feel like it. This is something that has already been worked out and approved. So, there's no way that somebody can tell you that you're doing something wrong. Also, because we are hoping, and obviously we have to bring this question to our general membership as to whether we're going to adopt uniform bylaws and now have all of our PTAs create standing rules. New Jersey PTA has sample standing rules that we will be distributing ahead of convention for everybody to see. We're going to have a few town hall meetings for us to discuss this for you, if you have any questions at all about any of it, so that we can, educate you on it and help you understand what we're trying to do for you in making this change. And hopefully you will come to convention and vote uniform bylaws in. In that sample standing rules, which I guess we can probably wait, but I will tell you this, that there are certain things in there that we want you to have in your standing rules. Certain items, because like I said, now they're not going to be in your bylaws, they're going to be in your standing rules. There are certain items that you must have in them. Now, we're sending out a sample of standing rules. We're giving you sort of a template to work with, but if you're a PTA that already has standing rules, that's fine. You do not have to use this sample standing rules, but the items that we do have starred, or these few items, do need to be in your, just incorporate them into your present standing rules. Slide. All right, so I just spoke a whole lot about standing rules. Bylaws can never be set aside. You cannot pick and choose what you want to follow out of your bylaws. Everything in there is a must. You must adhere to it. And in that fashion, standing rules cannot ever contradict your bylaws. So you cannot put something in your bylaws that something in your standing rules that undoes what it says in your bylaws. Standing rules, on the other hand, can be adjusted, as you see fit throughout the year. Your board will vote to change something in your standing rules because they are a living document, but any changes you make will have to be brought back to your general membership to approve or adopt. Slide. All right, so some of this is going to be obsolete if we institute uniform bylaws, as we hope to do. But at this point in time, you can make amendments to your bylaws. If we adopt uniform bylaws, no amendments will be able to be made to that. Instead, you will be amending your standing rules. So at this point in time, when New Jersey PTA makes an amendment to the local PTA bylaws, they are immediately adopted they're adopted at the New Jersey PTA annual meeting, and they're immediately incorporated into your bylaws at the end of the annual meeting. We send out those amendments currently after the New Jersey PTA annual meeting to the locals to tell you what happened at convention or the meeting, to tell you what changes are in your bylaws. Again, if the generic or uniform bylaws are passed, the office will send each local PTA their new version of the bylaws, the uniform bylaws. Everybody will be getting the same. Slide. So I did cover this, I think, on that very first slide, because I just talked and talked, but this sort of sums up how standing rules are different from bylaws. Again, standing rules are unique to your PTA, while bylaws apply to all PTAs, right? Standing rules do not need to be adopted by your, okay, so this will change. Currently, your standing rules do not need to be adopted by your general membership, but if uniform bylaws are put in, they will definitely have to be adopted by your general membership. Standing rules, however, at this point, do not need to be approved by New Jersey PTA, and they will not need to be approved by New Jersey PTA, even if we pass the uniform bylaws, but they will have to be submitted to New Jersey PTA. A copy, updated copy every year will have to be sent to New Jersey PTA. And the way standing rules are created, they're created by your board of directors. They should be reviewed annually, but they can be changed at any point by your board of directors. That's how standing rules are treated now. But again, if uniform bylaws are put into effect, your standing rules need to be approved or adopted by your general membership, created by your board of directors, but adopted by your general membership. And again, important, standing rules can never conflict with your bylaws. Slide. Okay, so it's coming up soon on election time for your local PTA. Your PTA election should take place in either April, May, or June. Slide. Okay, so 15 days prior to your election, this is what you should be doing. Okay, you're going to obtain a current paid member list from Member Hub 15 days before your election. Why 15 days? Because only members who have been members for 15 days before your election are entitled to vote.
What?
Slide. Yep, slide. Okay. All right, so because we're living in the virtual world these days, this is how you are to conduct a virtual election. you need to ensure that whatever platform you pick, you need to make sure that your the platform allows for anonymous voting if you have a contested election. If you don't have a contested election, because we want everybody, and everyone voting must be able to be seen so that you can ensure that the person that's voting is that person. If you do not have a contested election, the anonymous voting is important, because obviously you can just do a raise your hand vote because there's only one person running for the position. The president must appoint a judge of elections who's in charge of tallying the votes. Again, if this is only going to matter if you have a contested election. And on that note, what is a contested election? It's an election where someone runs from the floor against one of the slated officer nominees, or all of them for that matter. You can have somebody running from the floor against every slated nominee. In a contested election, a candidate must win by a simple majority. And a simple majority means it's half the number of members voting plus one. If there is no contested election, as I said before, voting can be done by a simple raising of the hand on your virtual platform. Next. So how do you report your election results? Simply announce the winners. You do not need to announce, so-and-so won 3 votes and so-and-so got 29. You do not need to know that. You just have to announce the winner. Important, very, 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 very important, is to immediately go to Member Hub after your election. I don't care who does this in your PTA, a president ideally, but somebody must go to Member Hub and update your newly elected officers. Doesn't matter that they're not taking office until July 1. You can go in there and appoint them as note that they are the new year officers, the 21, 22 officers, but you must go do that immediately. It's very, very important that New Jersey PTA has correct officer information. So that is our only way of knowing who your officers are. If you tell us, we have no idea who your officers are. So we will continue to send information to officers that are not in office anymore. And some people are kind enough to tell New Jersey PTA, hey, I'm not president anymore or whatever, but some of them just, delete the message. So we're going on our merry way contacting the president who left office. So it's an unfair situation. Not only is it not good for your PTA because they're not getting very, very important information they need, but on our end, it just makes life more difficult to get our word out to you. So I think that's the last slide, but let's see what's on the next slide. Oh, yes, it is. Thank you very much for listening and have a good evening.
Thank you, everyone. We're going to open up this time for any questions that you may have. I know that there was one that was just typed in the question box. Rob, do you want to, it was answered, but did you want to say out loud what the question was?
Sure. So it was asked, what will the time frame be for submitting standing rules to New Jersey PTA if the universal bylaws are passed at convention? So convention is the end of May. So we hope, I'm talking if they do get approved, hopefully by the very beginning of June, we will be able to send each of you your updated local PTA bylaws that will take effect July 1st. So even if the bylaws get approved in May, we're putting a proviso in, which means that they don't have to start immediately. So we're setting the start date as July 1st because that makes more sense because that's the start of all the new officer terms and the start of our new fiscal year. So you'll have your new bylaws set for July 1st. We're hopeful because now the standing rules will obviously need to be adopted by your general membership, that you will have a general membership meeting in September, regardless if it's virtual or in person or hybrid, that you'll be able to get your standing rules approved at that meeting in September by your general membership. And then you can submit them to us after that. However, there's a lot of time, obviously, between when you're going to get the template and when you'll probably be able to present it for the first time at your local membership meeting. So over the summer, we will be available to look at standing rules, if you would like us to read things over, if you need help, if you need some of us to come on calls with you or discuss things that you think are important to be in the standing rules, because we would love and would benefit you to have your boards work on them, or your bylaws committees work on them and have them ready to present. So as soon as you have your first meeting, they can get approved and can start acting as the rules of your PTA for the new school year. Another question just went in. If we don't use Member Hub to collect payment for an activity, can we use another form of online payment, for example, Venmo? Hard to collect check and cash at the moment. Yes, like she said, Member Hub is available through the store, but if you don't want to use Member Hub, you can use PayPal, you can use another form of online payment. Venmo, we have been recommending that you not use Venmo because Venmo, up until a few weeks ago, did not have a separate version for businesses. It was all personal. So when you did the personal account, even though you could put like ABC PTA as the name, still it's a personal directed account. Venmo has just started and it shows up on my account, but I read somewhere that it's like gradually coming into everyone's account. So you can set up a Venmo now, but it must be a business Venmo, because then you could connect it with, you'll still need a person to put in their social security number, but that's the case with any online system you use, because it's just like joining your, adding your name to your bank account. You have to give them your social security number to be on a bank account, even if it's not your personal bank account. But you'll be able to also link it with your EIN number, which then makes it responsible for the PTA, which then will allow it to hopefully fall under some form of insurance if that were to ever be the case. If you're just using a personal account in any of these things, maybe Venmo, maybe PayPal, and it's a personal account, and something were to happen where, you know, you gave, you passed down the account, but your social security number was still on it, insurance companies will not be able to do anything because it's a personal account that you gave someone your information to. Where if it's a business account, they're, you know, I mean, I'm not guaranteeing anything. There may be a way to get around that. And I am not seeing any other questions now.
Awesome. Well, it's been very quiet tonight. I hope everybody was able to get any questions that they may have had answered. I just want to put in another plug for our leadership convention, which is May 22nd or May 21st through May 23rd. And once again, I'm happy to announce that we have First Lady Tammy Murphy coming as a guest speaker, and we also have Senator Cory Booker, who has graciously agreed to come also. So we're really excited. We're hoping that you guys come. For PTAs, it is only $50 for registration per person. It is a valid PTA expense, and we hope to see you all there. If you have any additional questions, please give Rob a call at the office, and he'll be able to assist you in anything that you need. And Kathy, do you want to say anything, any closing remarks before we go?
I just want to say thank you again. I know this was a lot of information, you know, almost 3 hours, Phil. But you know, you'll get the information when you go through it again. Please, if you have any questions at all, New Jersey PTA is here for you. And we want you to know that no question is too little to ask or too big to ask. If we don't have the answer, we'll find out for you. So please just know that. And thank you again for all you do. We really appreciate it. And good night. Have a great night, everyone. And happy spring.
Enjoy the nice weather.
Bye. Okay.